I'm Joey Partida, Managing Director of RGVision Media, and this is our podcast where all entrepreneurs, business owners, and leaders come in to get insightful information from other business owners and our network of individuals who can add value to your organization or business. Today in the studio, we have Mr. Brian Godinez. Brian, every great community begins with a vision. As an owner of the largest architectural firm in the region, when you look at the Rio Grande Valley today, what excites you most about where our region is headed, and what role do you see thoughtful design playing in that future?
I'm encouraged, I'm happy, and I'm excited about the growth for our region. I firmly believe that the Rioplex region is the fastest growing region in the state of Texas. And when you have the population growth, that means more buildings. So in the built world, with all of our architectural engineers and contractors in this region, we're excited to see that more public service buildings, more private sector buildings, more infrastructure buildings up and down the border, warehouses, advanced manufacturing. And then one can't help but be excited about the future of our region when you just drive up and down Highway 48 and look at what's going on over there from Brownsville to South Padre Island with the LNG plants and the oil refinery that's coming, and the Port of Brownsville and how explosive that growth is there. And of course, the recent announcement of Ceronics with the possibility of 10,000 jobs and many million square feet of facilities that are going to be built there over the next several years, and the jobs it's going to create. And then, of course, finally, SpaceX. I believe that we've been measured over the last 10 years by a series of sea changes in our area here. The first one was when UT Systems smartly decided to combine the Edinburgh and Brownsville campuses and infused over $100 million into this area for us to become one of the largest higher upper tier university systems in the country. And that was huge for us. And then obviously when SpaceX decided to move their operations here in the Brownsville, Cameron County area, that was a sea change for our region. I think now with Ceronics and Ceronic joining our family of businesses here, we're starting to witness that a lot of the investment community, the development community is paying attention to this explosive growth, not only up and down our region, but across the border from Reynosa to Matamoros. So you can't help but be excited about, as an architectural firm, we're very excited about the built world expanding even more. But in terms of our quality of life and what it's doing for our economy, it's extremely, extremely enlightening to see, and it's fun to be a part of the growth, representing the built world and all of that's going on around here.
Excellent. So this is just me curious, have you had a chance to work with Elon directly at all? I know that's going to be something that people might ask.
Indirectly. So
okay.
Early on, we were involved in some of the construction of their early buildings years and years ago, before they started their explosive growth and brought a lot of their California operations over here to SpaceX, and not only in the Brownsville area, but in the Austin area as well. But there was a pet project that he was particularly interested in at SpaceX. He wanted a boardwalk, a very long 6,500 linear feet boardwalk from one end to the other. So we got asked to start doing some design work for this boardwalk. And it wasn't just simply a concrete series of steps with a small little fence on either side or rails on either side. This was complex. He wanted his solar panels. He's part owner of a solar panel company. On top, he wanted to have color lights. He wanted to have his instructions from the people that we dealt with is, I want to be able to drive a Tesla on the boardwalk.
Oh, wow.
So every time we did a design, a rendering, we know he saw it because he was either going yay or nay or adjust in that. And then the heavy rocket system started exploding in terms of their manufacturing there.
Right.
So it got tabled for a while. And then we didn't hear from them for quite a while. They ended up doing a boardwalk, but nothing to the degree of what we had put together. So that's my only claim to fame, of knowing that the work that we were doing was either getting a thumbs up or a thumbs down from Elon Musk.
Gotcha. I know I was curious on that, and I know it's going to pique the curiosity of people that listen to this podcast. So
yeah,
I'll move on to the next question.
Sure.
So the Rioplex initiative is centered around regional collaboration and economic growth. From an architect's perspective, How does quality design contribute to attracting businesses, talent, and investment to South Texas?
Well, as much as the availability of jobs and the availability of land is key and vital for investors or businesses to move here and begin operations here, equally important for their employees and a lot of the decision makers who have spouses who have an interest in the quality of life here. I think that's just as critical. So the education system is important. The healthcare systems are important. And then the municipal operations of cities and how they operate between each cities and or through the counties. And so those public facilities are important for a good quality education, good health care, our financial institutions, et cetera. We happen to be involved in a lot of public sector municipal buildings. It might be public safety facilities, it might be detention facilities, jails, it may be fire stations, city halls. In some cases, we've done event centers. One of the buildings that we're extremely proud of, and I think actually makes a strong statement about the quality of life in Edinburgh, is the Arts, Cultural, and Event Center that we did in Edinburgh next to City Hall. And so those buildings and the McAllen Performing Arts Center is a perfect example of raising the level of the arts and awareness of the arts in McAllen. They use it as a big factor in touting the city for potential investment or potential businesses. I think that's key. The courthouse that we designed, and the fact is that we've got all the judicial services now under one roof, where we separate security from the public from the judicial system, and all have separate accesses, and the security there is much, much higher now. Those are all part of the equation of why it's important that if we're going to have economic development flourish here, it's important the quality of life flourishes here, and that combines with education, public safety, healthcare, et cetera. All of them requiring advanced technologies in buildings that function extremely wisely and provide good services for the community.
ERO Architects has worked on projects that impact education, healthcare, commercial development, and public spaces. Is there a project that perfectly illustrates how architecture can positively transform an entire community?
I love the Edinburgh Arts, Cultural, and Event Center. That is not a very large event center facility, but it does serve some important functions in individuals in the community that enjoy expressing the whatever particular art they're involved in, whether it's sculpture, whether it's painting, music, performance. That's a facility where the public gets invited to utilize the labs and the classrooms that are there, and also to showcase through performance or other types of mediums they use with the event center that's there. The city uses it for its own events, but the public is invited to utilize the facilities there for events. But that's a building that addresses a need for a community, one we're very proud of. When you look at that building, and then you go up a step higher with the McAllen Performing Arts Center, and you look at the level of performance, not only from the symphony standpoint, which the house was designed for the symphony, but also Broadway productions and then local community dances and the arts that is a perfect example of serving a community regionally. Our vision from the very beginning, we're 25 years old now, and we've done over 350 projects. It was for years and years, our vision was connected communities. We wanted our buildings to be a focal point, the center of the universe for communities where they can connect. This region was built on mercados, built on pulgas. Yeah. And but it not just because of trade and commerce, but it was a place for social gathering. So we believe that that's now carrying into the 21st century. Facilities that provide social gatherings and connect people from different parts of the region and or in the community, or as simple as an elementary school that's connecting the families of that neighborhood. That's all part of the connections that we want to make. So it's important that we're impacting communities through our buildings. The last thing I want to mention is that every building project that we do, we always want to put a little piece of the community in the building, whatever reflects the community. If you look at the courthouse that we did, there are 12 indigenous points of interest of the community in that building. As simple as the terrazzo tile, the inviting porch at the entrance. Right. People say that the building feels like it's a little bit welcoming. Not a lot of people go to the courthouse for a fun event, but that's a huge porch, and we all grew up with porches. And so then the fact is that the mesquite, The brown features in the building on the ceilings and the exterior of the building represents the mesquites, which is indigenous to this region. When you look at the McAllen Performing Arts Center, the outside exterior represents the palm fronds. And when you go into the theater and you see the multicolors on the chairs, that was representing the sunsets and sunrises of the Rio Grande Valley. There's a lot of instances where in our buildings, we want to try put a little bit of the culture, respecting some element of the community through its people, land, and history into our designs inside and out. Even if we don't get a lot of money in the budget, we still find ways, because we think it's important that when somebody walks into a building that they paid for through taxpayer funds, they have a sense of ownership, a sense of belonging, and they feel a bit at home. And that's what we want them to feel when they experience the function of the building.
All right. You touched on a lot of things that when I've gone to, for instance, the Performing Arts Center in McAllen, as well as to the courthouse, which I finally made a visit there, I did notice these things, but it was in the back of my mind, and you touching on those things now really brings light to it.
It's a little bit of a subconscious effect.
It is. And I hope that people, I'm very hopeful, and I know that people listening are going to tune into that and go, oh, wow. So there was a lot of thought behind that.
Oh, yeah. You go over to the San Juan City Hall that opened a couple of years ago, and the history of San Juan, I believe San Juan is the city of faith. And the fact is that we used a lot of the history of the Basilica. The Basilica is the number one attraction in the region outside of the island. Over 1.5 million people come to see and be a part of the Basilica, either through performance or just want to walk around or just look at the stained glass. Right. So we took a lot of the history of that building that was important over the last 400 or 500 years, and we brought that into the exterior of the City Hall in San Juan.
Okay.
And so people don't really know specifically what all that history is, but when you walk into that building and you walk up to it and you look around, there's probably 6 or 7 touch points of the city's history in that building from the outside.
Okay.
Yeah.
Something to keep an eye out for.
Yeah.
And so the next question that I was going to ask, it actually touches on that. As the Rio Grande Valley continues to grow, what infrastructure or development opportunities do you believe deserve the most attention over the next decade to support sustainable regional growth?
Education. Without a doubt. Our public education system is under attack on multiple fronts right now. It's so difficult for education systems up and down this region and around across the state of Texas to be able to fund the upgrade and modernization of facilities. Okay. I think the most important facility, we believe, is the career and technical education buildings. Those facilities that are connected to high schools is a connecting point between the workforce needs, the community colleges, and the high schools to be able to create kids ready for jobs. Right. Those are important facilities. We think that every high school needs to have an upgrade to their CT facilities, and if they don't have one, they need to build one. And those classrooms and labs in those buildings need to reflect real-life work environments, whether it's welding, construction, technology, robotics, aerospace, construction in other types of buildings, manufacturing.
Yes.
And then you can get into cosmetology, judicial, etc. But every one of those CT facilities, from the ones we've done in Point Isabel all the way to La Jolla, all have a reflection to the region's workforce requirements, and they're connected to South Texas College or TSTC or Texas Southmost College. But education, without a doubt. If you added up all of the aging buildings that are up and down this region in 41, 42 school districts in Region 1 here, it would probably take about $7 billion to modernize the entire public education facility infrastructure. And trying to do it $100 million at a time is so difficult. Yeah. And I applaud the facility folks and the maintenance folks for all the school districts to try to keep those buildings up to just to at least not have it leak from rain, to have their HVAC systems working so the kids have normal temperatures. I mean, that all impacts engagement and learning. So first off, I applaud McAllen ISD to pull off the largest bond election in the history of this region. Right. $355 million. I hope that's a wake-up call for taxpayers to realize that there's no other way to fix facilities, no other way to upgrade facilities and modernize them for our kids. Right. You have to roll bond elections out to be able to do it.
I'm glad you mentioned that. My wife is a principal at Rayburn Elementary for the McAllen ISD, and she's very big on exactly that, where she feels that they need to put more money into the schools to modernize them somewhat. And she's currently at Rayburn Elementary, and she's done a lot for the school. And I love going in there and seeing just those little changes make a big difference and a big impact on the kids.
Well, kids are digital learners, and kids can get very restless. And so what kids need is to be motivated subconsciously to learn. And so if you can't afford to add or upgrade, at the very minimum, you can change the color schemes of a building's interiors with some fresh paint and make them bursting colors.
That's right.
And maybe open up and bring some more daylight and sunlight into the buildings so that the kids get more awake and that they engage more in learning. Simple cosmetic features like that are not as expensive, but unfortunately, there's a lot of HVAC and roofing needs up and down this region, just so that the kids don't get wet and just so that they can at least have normal temperatures. But simple paint sometimes, maybe just the trick.
Well, I'm glad we have someone like you advocating for that.
Oh, yeah.
It's very, very important, like I mentioned. And as you mentioned, color, they just did a big wall in the cafeteria at my wife's school where they did like rockets and outer space. And it was just
like the wall behind us.
Yeah, just like that.
Yeah.
And I tell all the time, paint makes a big difference, just that alone. So I'm glad you're advocating for that. That leads me to the next question. Okay, so business owners often focus on budget and timelines when planning a new facility. From your experience, what are some long-term design decisions that can significantly improve operational efficiency, employee satisfaction, and customer experience?
Well, my first reaction is to be able to create sustainable systems, specifically in the HVAC, heating and air conditioning systems, to be able to plan for knowing that the life cycle of most of the systems around the valley, whether it's roofs within 20 years, HVAC systems within 10 to 15 years, those are the most important things. I mentioned earlier about cooling and heating and water intrusion are critical and can be such distractions for teachers teaching and students learning. And so you have to plan for that. You have to plan for advanced technology. And I'm not talking about schools. I'm talking about businesses in general, buildings in general, in terms of technology, because of the exponential increase in how technology platforms change and what AI is doing out there. But I think there's an even simpler step before that. The smart facility folks that are either involved in private sector or public sector, when they're budgeting and planning for potential future construction, they need to sit down and bring architects and contractors into the conversation instead of them huddling up in their conference room internally within themselves, trying to figure out what costs are going to look like 6 months to 6 years from now.
Yes.
It's very hard to predict. So it's best to bring the experts in. Look, companies like mine, there are many, many, many architectural firms in this region. Smart folks, engineers, contractors, trades, in subcontracting work. Invite them to the table and just have conversations about what does the future of construction costs look like. Right now, we're struggling to try to predict steel, concrete, and labor. Those three factors continue to be a struggle since COVID, and they continue to keep rising. As long as this war continues, the unpredictability of those three alone makes it difficult for us to predict. So we, as experts dealing with this industry, right now there's probably year-to-date about a good 2,500 projects in this four-county region that are actively going on, which represents roughly about $2.25 billion in construction value. Our industry, our brothers and sisters and architects, engineers, and contractors are about 2,000 that in terms of companies, small, a lot of small to large. And we represent an industry that has a potential for about $15 billion into the economy. And so if you're going to plan and if you're going to try to determine budgets for what design elements are most important in your building, a lot of it will be based on systems, roof, it might be water drainage, moving water out so it doesn't come in, HVAC systems. You'll find that people will just sit down with you. Yeah. We don't need to be paid. We don't mind sitting down for an hour. Buy us a cup of coffee, and we'll talk about what the construction industry looks like in terms of costs so that your planning is a little bit more accurate.
Now, you mentioned a keyword, technology, in the beginning of that last statement.
Sure.
Technology continues to reshape every industry. How are innovations such as artificial intelligence, building information modeling, also known as BIM,
Or BIM.
BIM, and sustainable building practices changing the future of architecture and development?
Well, AI is changing everything.
That's right.
And so we made a decision probably about 18 months ago that we were going to get ahead of AI and not be forced to be in AI. And so the first decision we had made about incorporating AI technology, either whether it's widgets, third-party, and or full AI platforms on the construction drawing side or the administration side or the business development side or the finance side, was to get ahead of it and see what we could use that makes us more efficient. Not to replace anyone, not to replace any systems we have, but to provide us with more efficiencies to be able to get our jobs done faster and or more efficient. So the first thing we did about 18 months ago was we were already a Microsoft house. So we decided to become a Copilot house.
Okay.
And everyone had to have a Copilot office mate assigned to them.
That's right.
So that you could start working with AI and then from there, build from there, use it in visualization, use it in terms of administration, use it in terms of correspondence, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that AI, if you embrace it and not run from it, if you don't fear it, I know that there's a lot of people that are against AI, but if you can grab and harness the efficiency aspects of it and utilize it, if you're an artist, be inspired by what you can do with it, but not to replace the art.
Right.
And the same thing applies to the function and business operations of the company. As far as BIM technologies, auto or computer-assisted drafting, we have been a BIM Revit house since, I think, 2013. And we have been a test site for AutoCAD. Every year we get to test their new features. And we've been embracing technology for a long time. When COVID hit and we were told to leave and go home, your offices, we never went back. We built our own private infrastructure to be able to work from home and then have hybrid office structures in different cities. So we're in Brownsville, McAllen, and San Antonio. And so we have office environments where our staff can go in and work 2 or 3 days out of the week, but we've been working from home collectively and done over 50 projects, if not more, in the last few years working from home. And we've been able to master that, working with the clients, working with consultants. So technology has been something that we've never run from. We've always been ahead of.
Excellent. So using it as a tool.
A tool for efficiency.
That's right.
Primarily.
Okay.
If it creates more profit for us, if it creates more satisfaction with our clients, if it expedites and accelerates schedules for project construction, if it gets us under budget or in budget, that's what we use technology for.
Good to know. Okay, we'll jump right into that. Okay, so what competitive advantage does our region offer that developers and investors from outside the area may not immediately recognize?
Hire local. There are, as I mentioned before, there are over 2,000 businesses, architects, engineers, and contractors and subcontractors, those associated with trades and construction. What happens is a lot of out-of-area investors, a lot of our developers want to bring firms from Houston, Dallas, and San Antonio, firms from out of state, and to come down here and expect that they can work under these environmental conditions, know these environmental conditions, understand the building practices that we have here and or the building standards or the international codes that we have to apply and or how to work through the permitting process. Hire local.
Yeah.
When you hire local here, you are helping this region grow. It means that, like my folks, they are property owners. Their kids go to local schools. They shop, play, and invest in local retail and local trade. So every dollar that gets put into a local bank, not out of area and puts into an out of area bank, what is in a local bank has a multiplier almost 10 times. So for every dollar, it's a potential for 10 more dollars that goes into the community because it got put into a local bank and then got spread around our region. We are qualified. There isn't any service that we can not do. Any service, from planning all the way through construction. We have some incredible architects, engineers, and contractors and subcontractors in the region that can do any project, from what's going on over in Corridor 48 in Brownsville to SpaceX, all the way up and down the region, from the port side and everything that's going on the port, all the public buildings, private buildings, all the way from here to Laredo. Our local brethren and sisters can take care of these projects here locally.
Bring it home.
Hire local.
That's right. Hire local. And my mind is expanding right now interviewing you. So thank you.
Oh, you're
I'm
more
learning
than
so
welcome.
much in just this little bit. And you're also challenging me to think more outside the box. I'll jump right into the next question.
Sure.
So for young professionals considering careers in architecture, engineering, or construction, what skills and mindset do you believe will be most valuable as our communities continue to evolve?
I believe that it's not so much about high tech as it's about high touch. We need to have our kids socializing more away from the computers. They need to be networking. They need to understand the importance of what it is to network and be around people, because from that, your communication skills grow, the ability to be able to communicate and present yourself or present your future company. Look, technology, the universities are taking care of our kids.
Yep.
Our companies up and down this region can get any kid, any young adult ready to be a good architect, engineer, or in the world of construction within 2 or 3 years. They're going to be pretty solid. But if they don't know how to communicate, all the soft skills in terms of being well organized, well prepared, being able to present, to stand in front of a room and just talk for a minute or two about yourself and or who you represent, high touch. Start going out there and getting involved. It's important to be engaged in a community. We have a philanthropic a program at ERO that we launched 2 years ago called ERO Cares. And it's not about just giving a check to a nonprofit or to a school foundation. We encourage our employees to be actively involved in community civic groups, committees, advisory groups, be involved in church, be involved in anything outside the home where you're out there talking, involved, investing in the community. And so we get involved with particular philanthropic initiatives. Noble Charities is a great group
Yes.
that's involved in this region. We've partnered with them many times on philanthropic initiatives. But I think our young folks need to learn about what it is to communicate more effectively and more powerfully. And the only way you're going to do that is to get out of that house, get out of that room, and go talk and visit and meet people.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm in that age group that went through. So I'm from the 80s. I'm born in the 80s, and I've gone through the technology phase and AI and everything in between. And I just had this conversation yesterday where I was talking about the publication and how important it is to read, go back to reading. And I'm trying to encourage some of our clients to consider staying firm in the publication, because I feel that reading is something that needs to be brought back to our next generation instead of just being digital the whole time. So
Sure.
glad you mentioned that.
As well as vinyl.
Yeah.
You're seeing a big comeback with vinyl.
That's right.
Yeah, a little bit retro right now.
Yes, and we're seeing more and more pop-ups across the valley of vinyl and cassette tapes and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Arcades, I like
Oh,
that
yeah.
too. Okay, so on to the last question. When you think about the future of the Rio Grande Valley, what legacy would you like ERO Architects to leave behind, and what message would you share with business leaders who want to help shape the next generation of our region?
Well, I learned early on when I got involved with Eli Ochoa and my partner, Octavio Cantu, were both owners of ERO, that the best legacy for an architectural firm to leave is doing iconic buildings. And so I made a decision when I started doing business development for ERO 20 years ago that we're going to go after big building projects. And we've been fortunate that we got to do the McAllen Performing Arts Center, the courthouse. Doesn't necessarily have to be a $40 or $50 million building. It's iconic if it's important to a community. I already mentioned the Arts Cultural Events Center in Edinburgh, the City Hall in San Juan, the Public Safety Complex in Weslaco. The list goes on, and many high schools and many elementary schools. I already said career and technical education facilities. All those have, a lot of people know that we did those buildings. You eventually find out that ERO had some relationship to that building. And the fact that that building is such a touch point in a community and has such an impact, and communities and the impact we have matter to us. And we know that those buildings will stand for 50, 60, 75, maybe even 100 years. And the fact that those buildings have such an important role in the growth of a community or impacting individuals or impacting small groups or large groups, to me, that's our legacy, is those buildings that are going to stay there and people will get to go. They eventually will not know that it was an ERO building, but that's okay. The fact is that it's still around. we believe at least it's a visual and or a vertical structural legacy that we get to create. And we know that it impacted many, many, many people, many, many groups. So that's a legacy that I hope happens. I still believe that this community is still a family-centric region. People are still family-centric. And the only way that the lifeblood of families is connecting, whether you connect around the dinner table over holidays or tamaladas, or go to church together or at weddings or funerals, there's always connecting going on. And that's why we believe that buildings do the same thing, and they're the lifeblood of connecting in communities. And we get to be a part of that, and just brings us a joy to know that we are part of that.
Wow. It's been a pleasure hearing you expand more on what you do for our community. Again, I feel like my mind has gotten a workout listening to what you had to say about the community, what ERO brings to the table in the Rio Grande Valley. It's an honor having you here, speaking with us, having this interview. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. It's my first podcast here in this studio here.
Oh, okay.
So you're the first guest that I get to interview, and I think you hit it out of the ballpark. I can't wait to go home and talk about it with my wife and my family, my son, and with other family members that I know of that are in the architectural world and industry, engineering, and just to share what you brought to the table today. So thank you for that.
I appreciate that. You know, I wouldn't be here talking about the success of our firm if it wasn't for all the clients who trusted us to do the buildings that we've done, and all of the hundreds of employees and consultants that we worked with. Big shout out to the current staff of ERO. I'm so proud of the folks that work for us that we get to spend every day with. We're one big family, and we just love extending out to their families and who they touch. But yeah, it's been a great joy and a great ride for us. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. Thank you too.
Hey, thank you for tuning in today's episode. We hope you found value in our conversation. Don't forget to hit that follow button so you don't miss out on our next episode. We've got more exciting content coming your way. In the meantime, follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and any of the other platforms we have to get behind the scenes content and more.